Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Archaeology, the channel giving you a sneak peek inside history's mysteries and the lives of the people who investigate them. Today, I'm very happy to bring you my first Ask an Archaeologist interview for 2025. I've been doing this series for a few years, speaking to archaeologists from all over the world about how they ended up in archaeology, what their goals are for their careers, their favorite discoveries, and what they would visit if they had a time machine. Today, my guest is Giselle Kiraly, who works in the UK as an archaeological project officer and human osteologist for PCAS Archaeology. We talk about her job as a human bone specialist, her work with Operation Nightingale, as well as how she recently became an expert and presenter on the newly revived Time Team show. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe or like to help support the channel and tell the algorithm to promote it to new viewers. Thank you in advance for taking the time to even watch this video for longer than a few minutes. It really helps me out. Without further ado, let's dig into the interview. All right, welcome to the channel, Giselle. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
First question today is what inspired you to study archaeology/anthropology?
Well, it was all kind of an accident. I was I was doing an Earth and Ocean Science degree in Canada. I was there for 2 years and had to take an elective course and ended up taking one in anthropology. And mainly because I liked Jane Goodall. Like there was no good reason as to why I took the course, but took it, loved it, thought the whole evolution concept was fascinating and wanted to learn more, but that university didn't really have the right stuff for it. So I ended up switching to a different university in the States, just specifically to study biocultural anthropology. And then when I was doing that, I also had to do an elective course, and I could choose between doing physics and organic chemistry at the same time, or physics and something called forensic archaeology.
Okay.
And the forensic archaeology sounded much better. I took archaeology as a course and loved it. And that was the first time some lecturer actually said to me, like, you're good at this. And I think I was like naturally good at it, but naturally interested in it as well.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden everything just kind of lined up, I think. And
Yeah.
there we go.
It always helps to have that interest in in what you're studying. What
Yeah.
exactly was your course like? What did your course on forensic archaeology involve?
So that specific class that I took was a lot of bone studying, a lot of
Mhm.
osteology,
Okay.
and learning all the landmarks on bones and everything like that. But then there were also case studies and, what happens if a bunch of bodies are washed up on shore? What do the bodies look like? And I mean,
Mhm.
things like taphonomy and changing over time and bodies
Mhm.
changing over time and what happens to bodies. And it became not just osteology, but scenarios where you might have human remains in archaeology contexts.
Mhm.
And so then my brain started to transfer from recent modern bodies to historical ones.
Yeah. So after you did that course or did that degree, can you walk us through what your career journey has then been from then until now?
The last year of my course, I basically started to think about what am I going to do after I finish uni, as everyone does. And I started asking different professors if they needed help with any projects. And one of them needed help measuring animal bones. So, despite that not really being an interest of mine, I did that. And I actually thought it was really cool because I got a different perspective on what can an archaeology job be.
Mhm.
So it was just measuring, just data entry, but I did that for a while and then got another project started up, which was repatriation for human remains and native artifacts.
Mhm.
So that was fascinating. We were
Mhm.
sat around a table going through shell midden that had human remains and artifacts mixed in and trying to find them all, categorize them all. And the whole time we've got ochre on the back of our hands so that way the spirits are keeping us safe. And we worked in silence. And it was just like a really special environment. I was so
Mhm.
privileged to be a part of that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it sounds quite like meditative almost.
it was really calming and really, those people are like really special people, not just the native people I was working with, but those friends that I formed. And it was a small group of us. And so it was Yeah, it was a really cool environment. And then after that, I decided I want to do a master's degree, but took some time off. So I worked with the Department of Defense. There's some partner projects where they do recovery for missing World War II people. And
Okay.
so I went to Belgium and did some work there, doing recovery missions, and then ended up doing my master's degree in England and then stayed. And now
Yeah.
I'm in, yeah, just happens, doesn't it? So now I'm in the commercial sector
Mhm.
and I've moved up to supervisor from assistant supervisor. And now I'm a project officer and a human remains specialist. So it's kind of
Mm.
all ended up full circle from that first university class.
Yeah. How does the human remains part come into your like everyday job as a PO?
Well, you just happen upon human remains. So
Mm.
there's sometimes it just randomly happens at a site, and it's good to have someone who knows what to do
Yeah.
with a human body.
I should perhaps rephrase that. How often is what I kind of meant.
Oh, good question. I think for my company, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month,
Oh,
you get
really?
it's pretty often. And sometimes we just get full on cemetery sites. And so then
Mhm.
I'll be on that site for a while and just kind of help teach people what to do and make sure it stays organized because it can be pretty stressful when there's a lot of burials on top of each other. So,
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, and I'll have a follow-on question in a second, but so where I worked in the UK and Scotland, I think bodies are much more of a rarity.
mm,
I think I only came across I don't think I've ever done a burial in Scotland. All the burials that I ever worked on were down in England. The further question I wanted to ask about is that how did you like either come across or get or whatever like a job as a human osteologist? Because for those people who probably don't know who are watching, an osteoarchaeology degree in it is like a very popular course that you see at a lot of different universities across the country and also attracts a lot of international students. And then, everybody graduates and there's only a very, very limited number of jobs. So people that get to do the human osteoarchaeology as a job, I think are quite few and far between. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about how you ended up in that role.
you've hit the nail on the head. It's super hard to get the job. I mean, I think things like CSI and the Bones TV series, they
Mhm.
made lots of people want to do that, the
Mhm.
degree, which is really cool, but there's no jobs in it.
Yeah.
There's maybe one job per company. Maybe the big companies have three or four, but that's, a big company.
Yeah, or it's, like, project specific, like HS2, right? You get
Yeah,
hired for the duration of a project, you're not, like, a full-time OSCEO.
exactly. And that's if you're doing commercial work. If you're
Mhm,
doing work for research, maybe that's a summer. And if
mhm,
you're doing work for an academic staff, maybe you're teaching most of the year, but then you're doing a little bit of project work.
mhm,
So it's really quite a lucky thing to get into it. I mean, I think it's luck and hard work. I
mhm,
think I constantly was making sure I was doing something bone related,
mhm,
always. And then on top of that, the company I work with now is a small company. And
mhm,
so with small companies, in my experience, they need a lot of things done in-house if possible. And so they had always been sending the bones to other people at other companies. And they realized, actually, we've got someone now who can do this once I started at the company. And so
mhm,
they just had a good look at my CV. I had quite a few practice small assemblages to see if I was meeting the standard. And once that
mhm.
was approved, then big assemblages, here I come. So
Well, I mean, well
eventually got it.
done.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
That was
You mentioned in the bio that you sent over to me being involved with Project Nightingale. Can you tell us more exactly about what that is and how you got involved with it and what you do?
Yeah, it's so cool. It's an initiative actually by the Ministry of Defence called Operation Nightingale. And what we do is we work with veterans who have low mental health, and usually that's pretty easy to figure out because they've got strong PTSD or traumas hit them hard or sometimes physical ailments, they're missing legs, missing arms, that
Mhm,
kind of thing. And it's a way to help their recovery after they come back from war. And archaeology is a really amazing way to do that, and it's an
mhm,
underrated way. And
mhm,
so we work with them on different sites from all different time periods and help them through. I mean, ultimately, it's through the friendships that you make with archaeology, but the act of
mhm,
doing archaeology, that meditative, like you said before, like
mhm.
meditative troweling and things like that. It helps so much. It's a really great time, and it's helped so many people. I mean,
Yeah.
hundreds of people now have been through the program, so it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Archaeology is therapy. Who needs to bring therapy dogs and therapy cats and therapy llamas and et cetera? Just send people away to do archaeology therapy.
Honestly.
That's the next business idea.
Exactly. There we go. We've got it.
You've also mentioned that you are now on Time Team, which is probably, I would say, up there as one of the most popular TV programs about archaeology and something that is one of the rare TV programs I think that while I'm sure it has its sensationalism, which we will get into, it's quite
Mm,
factual and it's kind of like archaeology done by archaeologists on TV and not being necessarily driven by other narratives. So,
yeah.
how did you get involved with that?
It's always an accident with me, but it was another accident. It was um I was on a dig with Operation Nightingale, and
Mhm.
they needed someone to basically do a bunch of, and this isn't anything against the program, but there was a bunch of grunt work that needed doing. You know, buckets needed moving, test pits needed backfilling and things like that, and I didn't mind doing it. And so I just would jump in and do all of those things. And then they needed to interview me for something, something that was found a previous year. So they did an interview, and they just liked all of that. They liked the attitude. And I think that's something I like to see as well now on
Mhm.
sites. I like to see people just jumping in. So I get why that stood out. And I spoke well enough on camera that they said, all right, we'll give you a go. Let's see how it goes. So
Yeah.
there's yeah, I started being an interviewed expert, and then now I'm actually got my first presenting gig coming up this year. So
Oh, tell us a
just
bit more about
missed,
that,
but
if you
yeah,
can.
there's a B-17 recovery mission which has been teased in some Time Team News bits, and
Mm.
Helen, Geeky, and myself have presented that, so that'll be coming out
Oh,
this year.
excellent. Well, everyone keep an eye out for that. As I kind of alluded to just now, obviously what you see on TV even is different than reality. Or I mean, in my experience, that's the case. Has that been the same for you?
Yes. I mean,
What?
it broadly is right. They broadly
Yeah.
get it right. Like I said, not everything is seen. And like you're saying as well, I mean, you don't see bailing out of overflowing trenches. You don't see any paperwork getting done typically. You don't see loos being delivered. You don't see fences being put up. You
Yeah.
don't see hours of work just trying to sort out the logistics of a
Yeah.
site. And, where are people going to sleep if it's a research dig?
Mhm.
There's so many background bits that you don't see. And I mean, honestly, just if you think about like a boundary enclosure on a site and a corner of that needs being dug, and let's say there's nothing in it, that to a on-site typical archaeologist is great because you can see
Mhm.
how many times it was recut, how many times was the stitch used. It doesn't have to have anything in it. You might just from the shape of it or the soil color be able to tell something about it. But that's not nice TV. It's not
No.
glamorous. So that won't
TV
make the
needs you to
cut.
find things.
Yeah, and it's not all finds. So
Yeah.
it shows a portion of it. It shows the exciting portion, but not the
Yeah.
full picture of archaeology.
Yeah. Yeah, the boring bits, which, unfortunately to say is probably the majority of archaeology is quite boring. The exciting stuff is great. Adrenaline rush when it happens, it's fine. But yeah, the boredom part is something that I was unprepared for when I went on my first field school. Is like how much
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm just alone with my thoughts today. I haven't
Yeah.
found anything today,
If all we were
etc.
finding was gold, it would just be high status people, and we want to get a look at everybody. So
Everything. Yeah.
yeah.
What are some challenges that you have come across in your career?
I think the first one mainly is just being a woman in a construction-led industry.
Mhm.
That can be really difficult. And that's not archaeology as a discipline because there's actually so many women. I mean,
Yeah.
potentially more women than men
Mhm,
are in archaeology, and that's very broadly speaking. But
mhm,
in the construction industry, there's very few women, so sometimes it's difficult to get the some respect might not be the right word, but you have a power on site as an archaeologist, and not every construction person likes that. And being a woman
mhm,
makes it a little bit more difficult, even.
mm. The credibility almost. Maybe that's a
Yes,
better way
yeah,
of putting
that's
it,
the right word.
credibility? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that is quite a common refrain from a lot of the female archaeologists, that I interview, and but hopefully, I mean, things are changing.
They
So
are changing.
there's
Yeah,
more,
I
as
mean,
you said, there's more and more women working in it. The more of us that there are on a construction site, the better it is for construction in general. So,
yeah, I totally agree. And that's one challenge that's quite a typical challenge, I think, for women.
mhm,
But there's also like a quite a challenge that's kind of across the board, which I think is kind of honing your craft and being accepting of the
mm,
of sites and feeling satisfied. I think
mhm,
so many people they dig to find something or they dig to move up in a company. And
mhm,
I think more people need to face that challenge and realize that they can just hone their craft and they can get
mhm,
really good at their level and they every day you're improving. And
mhm.
sometimes it's hard to see that. So
Yeah,
I think that's another challenge as well.
that's a really good point. On to our kind of like short form answer section. What is your best and worst field experiences?
Worst would be a soggy site. Anything to, especially with commercial work before
Mhm,
construction, making a client happy when a site is so soggy and you can't work it is a difficult situation. And it's
mhm.
not always fun for us archaeologists bailing out things over and over, or you step in mucky soil and you end up with like platform boots of mud.
Yeah, a spice
So,
girl.
yeah.
Muddy spice.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not always the best, but there are some amazing sites out there, and no matter the weather, the people, the archaeology, they can make a site. And there's one site in particular I worked on called No Name Hill, which is near Starcar, and it's within the same area, and it's a Mesolithic site, so 11,000 years old and you're digging in peat on your knees on these wooden boards
Mhm,
and you're just like right next to somebody else and you're digging with wooden tools and you get the smell of the peat and you're looking
mm,
for anything old and you as you lift layers of peat it actually has kept everything exactly as it was 11,000 years ago, so you're looking at bones that look fresh and
mm,
leaves and twigs that look like they've just kind of maybe flown in overnight, but they're
mm.
not from overnight. They're 11,000 years old. It is
Wow.
crazy to get your head around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why wooden tools?
It's just the safety of everything because the peat,
Mm,
it preserves it, but it also keeps it very soft. So we don't want to use
mm.
metal tools or trowels to, we'll just scrape everything up and mess it
Yeah,
up for future analysis. But
yeah.
yeah,
I've never been on a I think I've dug up 1 or 2 mezzo things, but not in peat, so I've never used wooden tools before. I've only used metal. That's very interesting.
it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite thing that you've either discovered or found?
I was on a burial site as per my brand. Um, so I was on a site with Anglo-Saxon burials and I was just cleaning a body up for a photo and I thought we were basically done. There was nothing special with it, but all the other graves had really cool grave goods. So I was a bit jealous. And they had, little knives or
Mm.
bone combs or things like that. And as I was cleaning around the neck, I saw a glint of something and it ended up being a purple amethyst bead. And
Oh.
it was amazing, and I didn't even say anything because I didn't know what I'd found yet, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
make a big fuss, but it ended up being like a long bead and then a tiny bead and a silver ring, and then it was
Mm.
sort of a set of them, but there was only the one purple bead and tiny bead,
Mm.
and it would have been a really cool necklace, and they've got some recreations around in different museums like that, but to
Mm.
find it myself was, I mean, amazing.
Yeah. I mean, as much as it's not something that happens to us very often, everybody likes finding treasure.
Yeah.
Like, there's yeah,
It
there
sticks
is
in your head when it
it's
happens,
there's
doesn't
a high, there's a certain high to it. Well, you'll have to see if you can get one of the recreation necklaces, or have you thought about
it?
buying one?
I haven't gotten one, and I have only just thought about it as
Yeah,
you say
there
it,
you
so
go, there you go.
I will have to do that.
If you had a time machine, what era, civilization, or site would you travel back to visit?
I'd go back to that Mesolithic site with the peat. It would have been a big lake, and it would have had an island in the middle, and we were working on the banks of that island, and nobody bothered to write anything down in the Mesolithic time period, so it'd be nice to have some chats with people and see what
Mhm,
they're doing. Some hunter-gatherer conversations would be great.
mhm.
So I'd I think that would be amazing. Just have a little look at that.
And then last question is, what would you say to encourage or inspire other people who want to follow in your footsteps?
I think that most of anybody can dig and anyone can be a part of archaeology. It doesn't matter if you have neurodiversity or you're missing arms and legs or you've got mental trauma or you're just having a hard time at figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. Anyone can try archaeology and anyone can do
Mhm.
it. And you just have to build connections and make friends and reach out to people. So many people need projects, need hands on projects. So you can send an email just asking if anyone needs hands.
Mhm.
And 9 times out of 10 people will be very grateful for any help. So
Yeah. I mean, I've reached out to people on my Instagram to ask for people to interview, and
so
you slid into my DMs, and
I
here we
did.
are. So,
Guilty.
it's just proof that it works. Like, honestly, just asking for if people know anything, like you said, or volunteering yourself for help is
Yeah.
always appreciated, and making connections. I think that's the really one of the underlying things about archaeology is we make connections with people in the present, but also with people in the past. And I think that's
And
really
it's such a
important.
small world. So you'll
Mhm.
definitely know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and
Yeah,
who knows how many digs you'll end up on.
exactly. Awesome. Well, that's everything for today. Where can people follow you in your journey on social media if they're so interested?
So I have a website, which is gisellekiraly.com. And so people can find me on there, but I'm also on Instagram, a wandering archaeologist. And those are pretty much the two best places to find me.
And also, obviously, don't forget to catch you on the newest season of Time Team that's
Yeah,
coming up. So
come check
it'll
it
be
out.
exciting to see you there. Awesome. So thanks so much for coming on. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Don't forget to comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel before you leave. You can follow Giselle in her journey through her website or Instagram. Links to both are in the description of this video. Also, don't forget to check out Inside Archaeology's Redbubble store for some archaeology merch. Thanks so much for watching, stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.